Okay, we're at part 2 now, question and answer. So that way we can put it, this is an hour. It's going to take it forever to upload. Okay, so since Heidi is do you have any questions, Heidi? You can either put them in the chat box or ask them. Let's put this over here too. Everybody, yeah, we can kind of both get in there.
She might be muted.
Oh, you're muted, Heidi.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, okay. No, I had a question about the colon lung. That was really interesting, how the colon actually helps the lung.
Oh yeah, because we
You want to know
can.
more
cleansing that.
You want to know more about how colon helps the lungs? Or are you just saying, you're just commenting that it was interesting?
Yes, I'd like to know. Yes, I'd like to know how that helps in terms of cleansing.
Okay, so let's start with boy, you might want to time me on this because I'll digress and it'll take forever.
Can do.
So they're going to time me because I'll digress and we're already at 9:30. Yeah, give me a 2-minute warning. If I go longer than 2 minutes, it's too long.
Okay.
We're going to see how polished I am with this one. So you start with, in my world, it always starts with what are you avoiding? Because we generally we're burning down half the house while trying to repair the other half. And burning down the house metaphorically means inflammation. And wrong food decisions means inflammation, guaranteed. They've been studying this since the 50s. They used to call it digestive leukocytosis. And they used to measure white blood cell count before and after meals. And the more crappy food people ate, the higher was their white blood cell count an hour or 2 hours after they ate. It's well documented. It's called enzyme nutrition, Edward Howell. The work's been done over and over again. So how it nourishes, how the colon helps the lung is they're both taking in and letting go, right? So there's an energy of action there that they share in common. It's a frequency, if you will. The Chinese call it the metal element, but you could call it, Timbuktu for all I care. It's just a name, it's a word, nomenclature. So when the colon, however, there's a certain transit time, 24 hours from mouth to anus for most of us. I sort of have a short bowel. I have a shorter bowel than most people, so my transit time can be as few as 2 or 3 hours when I was really unhealthy. When I eat grapefruit, I would see it in my stool 2 to 3 hours later. And the doctor called it rapid gut motility, but there's a reason for that, and it's a very good reason. My body said, screw this, get it out as fast as possible. And that's a good thing to have. It's better to have your body hold on to it and say, oh, I'm going to nurture this for 5 days, while it's poisoning you in the process. So the lung regulates acid-base balance partially through the CO2. That's why when you get your blood work, they always have the carbon dioxide levels on there. If it's not within 24 to 28, then it's too alkaline, too acidic. So you're not having a bowel movement for every meal equivalent. In other words, if I'm eating 3 meals a day, then the next day when I'm eating breakfast, I need to be pooping out the previous day's breakfast afterwards. When I'm eating lunch, I need to be pooping out yesterday's lunch. So if that's all filling me up, then for one, it's going to impair the lungs because it's going to be full down here. It's going to be pushing against the diaphragm and you can't get a deep breath anymore. Try overeating and breathe deeply. It ain't going to happen. Okay, so you see how if you're stuffed down here with waste and those guys with their belly that goes out to here, that's all fluid that's supposed to go back up to the liver via the portal veins from the intestines. And if it's sitting in here, well, it's also pushing up on here like a balloon, and you can't get your lungs filled, and you can't regulate your acid-base balance. And then eventually, if you can't get the nice rubber band effect in your lungs and diaphragm, then they start to get lazy.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way of putting it. So does that kind of help?
Yes, very much so. And then I also wanted to ask Monica something about hydration. I wanted to ask you because I know you were talking about the various ways that you can hydrate your body. Yeah. On, sipping the water, which I've been sipping my water. I don't have anybody to toast with, but I've been sipping it. And then I wanted to talk about I know with the shower and wetting the skin, but also could you use even the ocean too salty, or what do you think?
No, it's not too salty. The ocean is excellent for swimming and for, and really one of the keys is to use as many different kinds of appealing, clean water as possible. So when drinking water, people say, oh, well, should I get one filter? I say, I prefer that people find multiple tasty sources of water and mix it up, because that's a long subject, but that's the simple answer. And certainly putting a filter on your shower And if you take a bath, add some vitamin C to take out any of the chlorine is super important, because every bit of water that goes into your skin is going to be an issue. So if you don't have really great water, well water or something, wearing gloves, if you do a lot of water cleaning the dishes, can really make a difference. And certainly stop using horrible soaps. Only use Dr. Bronner clean soaps, and much less of it than most people think. You want to use only as much soap as you need if it's going to get on your hands or your body. And by that standard as well, pretty much use soap where the sun doesn't shine. And otherwise, and again, only the cleanest soaps. And a great simple thing to say is that shampoo, clean shampoo is one of the mildest soaps. So if you really had nothing else to go with, watering down shampoo in order to make sure, and again, a better shampoo is a good way to have something cleaner when you have to make a choice about anything. But we over soap our skin way too much. There's all kinds of proof that vigorously washing your hands with your friction underwater does just as much germ removal as using soap. And you just have to use your own common sense about when you actually need to use soap after you use the toilet or something. But you could also look into what the Indians do, where they wash themselves with water and kind of make their own bidet. That's a whole fun subject I go into with people as well. There's a lot of answers, but there's a few of them quickly.
And I also like the fact that you said you could use, don't put anything on your skin that you wouldn't eat. It's like fabulous.
Really simple way to look at
it. Moment.
Yeah, that's a really huge one. And from that standpoint as well, then you're also looking at when you do buy your food, it's another reason to understand why toxic chemicals of any sort are not a good idea. Read that label of ingredients, and you'll think twice about all the things you can't pronounce about whether or not you really want them in your body. You don't want them on your skin either. Most drugstores are full of toxins. Most drugstores have nothing to offer us. Including that, I'd sure prefer that you come to Craig and other experts for herbs and supplements instead of pharmaceuticals. And most of us, that's a very personal decision, but there's a lot of ways to take something other than pharmaceuticals, especially for people who are on more than one. The key is pharmaceuticals can be really useful here and there if you're taking one. If you're taking more than one, you don't know what's going on. Nobody's ever tested it. Nobody knows. Nobody can know. No one will ever know. No pharmaceutical company's ever going to do the testing on it. They've been asked over and over. It's just vital that people understand.
And then, Craig, one other thing for Craig, I'd like to talk about the smoke, because you were talking about the smoke herbs, and I did get a few of those down.
All right.
Hold on.
This one's mullein, M-U-L-L-E-I-N, and that's the most important one to remember. It's practically a weed in the mountain, once it gets established. My diaphoretic one is elderflower, which is kind of widely available, tulsi, holy basil, catnip, peppermint, linden flower is another one that's kind of a little more calming.
Is nasturtium?
Nasturtium would work quite well. It's just less flavorful.
But if you add it to pestos and things, it's great.
I'm just talking about a hot beverage, though, because a hot tea is what gets it out. And then there's one more that I didn't get into before, and that's your lymph stream. There's a few herbs for the lymph stream that are really important. Mullein does help the lymph stream in the chest, but then there's red root. That's a native ceanothus here in California. And there's figwort, which is also a native out here. And there's cleavers, which is a climbing.
And totally delicious tea.
Totally delicious tea. And finally is poke. And poke is an amazing plant to grow. The root of that plant, poke root. It's like a palm tree kind of, but it's just really strange looking plant. I got to grow it again. Yeah, poke root. And poke root's very low dose, 1 to 5 drops. I've had clients taking a whole teaspoon and, I have skin problems. Well, it's too much lymph movement. What I wanted to finish with, though, Heidi, real quick, how's that going to look? Oh, that's going to fit quite nicely. So the morning hydration. So one of the things that changed my life here was macrobiotics, moving back east and getting off the standard American breakfast, which is, French toast, pancakes, cookie. It's all dehydrating.
Carbs.
Yeah, it's all dehydrating. It's all sugar. You're increasing your solute stream and you're actually dehydrated. Just like those sugary beverages like Gatorade just makes me, I'll roll my eyes. That's not hydrating in the slightest bit.
Yeah.
not the slightest bit.
You know,
Pure toxin.
pure toxic junk. And the athletes wonder why they're still getting muscle cramps and stuff and injuries. It's like, well, don't drink Gatorade.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'll get off my little soapbox about that. So in the morning, there's some things I've learned through clients. The single best food that I've seen, especially for women and skin, is seaweed. Kombu and wakame tends to hydrate. So kombu, wakame boiled into water. I don't know how many hot flashes I've cured, but just take some strips of kombu, boil them in water for a half hour, strain the kombu out and drink a cup or two of that at a time. It's the easiest hot flash solution on the planet if you stop the spicy foods and the caffeine and the alcohol. Those three have got to stop. Cigarettes, I guess if you're a cigarette smoker, that's got to stop too, because they're all drying. Make the hot flash worse. So you can add, the thing that changed my life more than anything in the macrobiotic breakfast was the bowl of miso soup with a soft cooked grain and a vegetable. And it was incomprehensible when I show up there, age 30, and waiting for my breakfast and give me this tiny little bowl of miso soup with some veggies and thinking, how am I gonna live on this? I'm used to a steak and, jeez. So in a way, it was the worst summer of my life. I had 7 months I dropped to 155 pounds. I'm 6'2" and 3. I'm really healthy, weights 180. I came back and my legs looked like arms kind of thing. My family's like, what happened to you? And I'm like, well, I was meditating a lot, but I didn't want to do a lot of athletics because I was 155 pounds, folks. But I got better hydrated, I think, because of the miso soup in the morning. And that's the salt, the sodium. And miso is a probiotic fungus culture. To not glorify it. That's right, I said it. Miso is a probiotic healthy fungus. And why would you use that? To kick out the bad fungus. Because don't you want good apartment dwellers in your intestines? That's right. You don't want the evil candida dweller down there. You want the Aspergillus oryzae variants from the miso. I love that name, Aspergillus. I just like to say it. Aspergillus. It rolls off the tongue quite nice. And I have a book over here outside the house called The Book of Miso. And there's an electron micrograph photograph of a miso molecule. And it looks like a big, complicated snowflake. A dendritic pattern. You can look that one up. Dendritic patterns in nature. D-E-N-D-R-I-T-I-C, dendritic patterns in nature. Your blood vessels look like it. The mountaintop watershed looks like it. Trees look like it. Your lungs look like it. It's all dendritic patterns. It's like the tree of the trunk going into the leaves and all the variants, from the trunk to the branch. Look at the lungs. You got the main tube, the bronchioles, then all the bronchioles, whatever they call those, and then the little tiny alveoli. And everything in life works by these dendritic patterns. The other thing to consider in your morning water is if the main reason I'm having this right now is because I have too many clients, they just drink straight water. The best water you can drink has got to have minerals in it. And so spring water is generally the best because it's raw and it's been filtered through the soil, through the bacteria, through the fungus. And Royal Lee, the founder of Standard Process, isolated something called the pyrogen from raw water back in the 50s. The pyrogen is what gives you immunity to the bugs in your environment. Why? Because you're drinking them in tiny amounts through the soil being filtering the spring water through. Okay, so that's one reason why you do it for your immunity. Spring water, better for immunity. Local spring water, of course. And then finally, there is a therapeutic use of distilled water. And it's for the arthritics. They used to use it back 100 years ago. They would give them a quart to 2 or 3 quarts of distilled water a day, and they would cure some arthritic pain from excess. There's 4 or 5 forms of arthritis in Chinese medicine. There's a form from excessive sugar and eating and whatnot, and there's a lot of deposits. So the distilled water is just hydrogen and oxygen. You start pulling stuff out of the body. I did it myself for 2 years, and I blew my kidneys out, for lack of a better word. It took me about a year to recover. I shouldn't have been doing it, but I wanted to see.
Doing what?
Distilled water for 2 years. Only distilled water.
Oh.
Again,
And,
I always say don't only do one form of water.
Right.
Do lots.
yeah, Monica's got it right over there. Well, yeah, right. So the 4 main alkaline minerals that you could put in your water, this is the snake juice, this is all the intermittent fasting drinks now, is when your body's going into fasting and your cells start healing, they start giving off these old acids. And literally a guy, Agenus, he had an eruption on one of his fingers that wouldn't go away, so he had sent it to a lab. And it was penicillin that he had taken 30 years earlier.
Wow.
So the penicillin was in his cells for 30 freaking years. And it took the fasting and the cleansing for the body to finally go, yippee, let's get it out now. So the point is you need those alkaline minerals while you're fasting and cleansing. So there's sodium, they're right here on the whiteboard, potassium, calcium and magnesium. So I'm working on a formula for calcium and magnesium right now, but the sodiums very easily come through Celtic sea salt, unrefined sea salts, no, not real salt. No, doesn't qualify, it's 98% sodium chloride. No, not pink salt, because the pink salts are all contaminated now. The real Himalayan's gone. So pretty much Celtic, and there's a few others. You can contact me. Potassium comes from juices, put some celery juice in there, or cream of tartar is an easy one. And I don't like the synthetic forms of potassium, potassium chloride and potassium bicarbonate you can buy for cheap. That's what the new salt is, it's potassium chloride. Bernard Jensen, one of my favorite healers, calls potassium the radioactive element. And I get a little scared when I start seeing these synthetic forms of potassium, meaning because I get vicious diarrhea on potassium chloride, vicious diarrhea. And so I'm telling you that because don't mess around with these synthetic forms of potassium if you're sensitive, because it ain't fun having 8 bowel movements in 2 hours, let me tell you. Because that's what it was. Oh boy, I'm ready, I'm finally done. Ah! Running 5 minutes later back, it's just awful stuff. You don't want to be that guy, especially at a party. Okay, run it out. Ah! Liquid bowels. So the radioactive element radiated my intestines, apparently. So get it from a natural form, please. Laugh out loud. Oh, we have 2 Heidis. Whoa, we've got 2 Heidis.
The other one's frozen.
Oh, she's dead. Looks like she's all unhappy in the other one.
Yeah, the other picture doesn't look as good. Glad you're smiling that way.
Oh, man. This isn't on the recording.
Oh, 'cause their phone died.
Only we're on the recording.
Yeah, their phone died, that's why.
Okay, finally, calcium. You could literally soak eggshells in apple cider vinegar, and there's your calcium. Simple as that.
Wow.
I've done it. It's pretty decent form of calcium for the cheapskates out there. Standard process takes beets and ferments them, and then takes the lactic acid and binds that to calcium. They call that calcium lactate. Very, very similar to the calcium bicarbonate in our blood. There's only one enzyme step to do that process. But you can't make calcium bicarbonate into a supplement. It doesn't work. Calcium carbonate without the bi is a rock. It's a form of calcium you should avoid. Calcium carbonate, calcium oxide, and calcium sulfate. That's your signal. Either one of those 3 forms means you're eating ground up rocks. You do better licking the sidewalk.
Way better.
Literally.
You don't want rocks in your body.
You know what? You want minerals coming through plants and animals, living minerals. And then magnesium, I really recommend the ocean magnesium. I use a Polar Mints, it's called. It's ocean water with the sodium removed. So it's completely natural. There's a lot of evidence. If you want to study this guy, Noel got me into him, and it's the root cause protocol. And you don't want synthetic forms of magnesium, vitamin D, iron, any of them, because they will knock out your red blood cells' ability to make energy. And there's a fatigue problem in our society, and people don't understand, oh, I'm taking my synthetic D3 and my synthetic iron and my synthetic ascorbic acid and all these synthetic blah, blah, blahs. Well, guess what, folks? It's making the oxygen less available to your red blood cell, which means less energy, which means hypoxia, which means COVID problems. So stop your freaking synthetic supplements, and that includes magnesium. The only forms of magnesium this guy has found over a 20-year period, I tend to agree, is glycinate and chloride forms, and there's one other one, malate, I think. You don't want the citrate, that crappy calm, man, that stuff, I've been wondering about that for years, and now I finally got the evidence that it's not good. It'll give you a bowel movement, it'll make your bowels move, and it'll make you feel calmer, but in the end, it's eroding your red blood cells' ability to take in oxygen, the longer you take it. And so I've taken the more line of like, what's natural? Okay, ocean water is pretty natural to me. With the sodium removed, I'll take that. I'm done, And so you want all 4 of and each of us, calcium is constipating, magnesium is laxative. Sodium in large amounts is constipating, potassium is laxative. So you see the dance there. I need more sodium than potassium in my drink than other people. And I also need a much more calcium to magnesium ratio than other people. And so there's a ratio of these amounts in each glass of water that everybody has to play with.
And Craig has lots of really great, simple testing methods to figure out what that is the right ratio for each person. That's one of the things that we're offering.
So if you have adrenal fatigue, then you need a lot more sodium relative to potassium, for example. If you have a really bad diarrhea problem, we're going to give you more calcium than magnesium. If you got 1 bowel movement a week, we're going to give you like 300 times more magnesium than calcium, believe me. I have at least 5 miracle cases where, I mean, I gotta end on this one. It's just so crazy. My hand's getting tired.
There you go.
So there was this lady that, this is a classic bowel, like it just fits so well in, you talk about dehydrated. So this poor woman had both feet pain from here down, couldn't wear shoes. And she was 23 years old. And I'm going to make a point of being dramatic. She's a virgin that wanted a family, had never had sex with anybody. And the doctor's solution after 8 years of Frankenstein therapy, I'm going to call it, they ablated her heart, or atrioventricular node, young woman, teenager. They did a bunch of stuff to her heart because she had her atrial fibrillation, which is a rapid heart rate. I'm going to get to the punchline in a minute here. Just Frankenstein stuff. And so half the family, there's literally this many people in my office. Half the family's there, people from Canada and all over, because they'd been to the Mayo Clinic and everywhere. And they're like, I'm like, oh, you're in the quack's office now. That's how I opened it all up with. And they all laughed. Just kind of loosen them up. Like, oh, you're in the quack's office. Great. How'd the experts do it? I talked to, how'd the experts do for you, folks? And they're like shaking their heads like, well, we're not getting anywhere. And this woman was flown down from Canada because of the freak show practice that I'm in my reputation. So, okay, well, here's Craig. Looking around, looking at intake forms and exams. And an hour later, I'm like, so let me see if I got this right on the intake form. I'm reading here that 1 bowel movement a week since you were a kid, and you're 23 years old now? And I go, did anybody comment on this in the last 8 years? And everyone's eyes got real big, and they're like, oh my God, we have wasted 8 years of our lives on these idiots. And so that was step one, was we need to have you have daily bowel movements. She also had a problem psychologically of having a bowel movement if there was anybody in the house or around. So if she was in an airport, forget it. And there's some deep trauma there somewhere. She can't have a bowel movement. Behind a wall. Wow. And so it took us 9 months, but we got our bowels moving daily within a month. We did some serious herbal laxatives and raw foods and stuff, but. Wow. And then we watched the pain. We kept her around I was poking her with a needle and saying, where's the pain stop? And we could see the pain traveling down over many months. So that's how I kept her around, was like, you are improving. It doesn't feel like it, but you are. And then the ultimate channel came in after 8 months. One leg, literally, she says, it popped. Something popped when I woke up, and my right leg was no more pain. Wow. And I was scratching my head going, oh, that's interesting. What about your left leg? Oh, it still hurts horrible. I'm sitting there going, oh, fuck, now we're in a quandary. You got one leg and one leg bad. And so the next question, it's coming. When's my other leg gonna do this? And I'm like, I didn't know. How do I know? No, but I just breathed and I asked for guidance. The guy and it said, I found myself saying, oh, it'll pop in a week, no problem. And I'm like, did I just put that out there? Wow. You got lawsuit written all over it, But almost to the day, a week later, she calls me up, it popped, just like you said. And I'm like, oh, I'm a genius.
You made her believe. You guys. But actually, if the first one popped, the lights didn't make the second one.
I had no idea. It was all channeling. I just channeled it. So,
well done.
Now she has a family and kids, and she's happy as a clam. Well, I don't know if she's happy as a clam. I'll talk to her in a bit. But
she got those goals. That's
so the doctor's the reason why they took her to me, the doctor's solution was to cut her spinal cord to her legs. That was their final Frankenstein solution, age 23, which meant no babies, no family, no sex life, barely able to walk, walking zombie. That was their solution. You go to the quack, and now she's normal. So I like to call myself the quack that gets results. Come on over to Health Alchemy, the quacks who get results. You too can get results with the quacks.
Bowel movements are one of the most important subjects to ask everybody. Oh my God.
Let's turn the cord off. We'll continue going, but
sure.
Starting to feel like it's